Hello, my name is Michelle. Um, Basically, I'm going to record a video that kind of talks about my ranch. Um, Basically, in prior to year 2008, I worked as an engineer for Boeing on the B-1B bomber, designing a computer system for the aircraft, and it was a computer upgrade. And then, of course, the financial crisis happened, and I lost my job, and of course, so did a whole lot of other people. And so the last time that I lost my job, it was 2 or 3 years before I saw um, more work come back. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do for 2 or 3 years? And my family had some land out in New Mexico. And so I contacted my aunt who owned the land and asked her if she didn't mind me doing something with the land. And she said, sure. Basically, this picture that you see here is what the land looked like when I moved in. Um, there was a family moving out, and so this is, those are their vehicles. Basically, the this is where the old well house was when it had a uh, windmill. However, you can't see it in this picture, but so the well is down here where it now has a electric motor for it. And I mean, but there's just a bunch of land out here, nothing on it. A really old house, which I think my family built this house. And then, kind of like a little garage, and then you can't see it in this picture again, but it's outside way to get down into the basement of the house, where basically the pressure tank and things like that were located. And then there were some fruit trees here that when I moved in never bore any fruit whatsoever. Though fortunately, when I put cattle in that area during the winter, they would rub on the trees and pollinate, and we had tons of fruit after that. I put the cattle there, so that was pretty cool. So this was pretty blank slate. There was nothing out there. The only thing that was there, you can't really tell, and I'll try to show you in a. Let me get that view up. That's better off. Let me skip to this picture right here. So this is an overview of the 60 acres that my aunt owned. Um, the irony is when I look at this, I can see things I did to it. And I see this picture way better than, at this point, I'm not going to explain it all totally just yet. But here was where the house is right here. And this is where the trees were or are. Now this picture is an aerial view from Google. And what's interesting is that it actually, this picture was taken after I left. And I can tell it is because, one, the shelter is here that I created and it's still there. Although the shelter I had here is gone, so I took it down when I left. So yeah, I can tell that this is after I left. There's a second well. We had a little, like I said, there was a little well right here. We had another well sitting right here, and I'm hoping you can see. Yeah, you can see it. Okay. That we weren't. I wanted to get it to work because there is a pipe actually that ran along this way for irrigation, but it was so old and we never could get it to work. It was costing a ton of money. But the reason why you see this interesting wet spot is probably because somebody's probably testing this well. The guy who bought this land, he ultimately let the city have access to that well, and so they were probably working on that when this picture was taken. So this is an overview. It's 60 acres. It was basically a half mile by, I don't know what this is, an eighth maybe of a mile. There is too bad I don't have an overview of my neighbor's property. When you zoom, this next picture is kind of a zoom in of like 5 acres of the land, or I know I called it 5 acres. But you can kind of see the house, the garage in that first picture. There was a little road that went around outside, although I cleaned it up a lot because and there was like where the little trees were. This little road here was there originally, but I really used it a lot. Back before when my family lived on this land, there was a big, huge house sitting right here, and apparently it caught fire, and they moved away. So this was really the main entrance back then, and it's so the house is buried somewhere out here. I don't have a clue where. I know when I was growing up, there was a big chicken barn right here, and it was pretty big, so it was probably more than just chickens. We used to go out here and shoot guns, and I know that that got tore down, and it's buried somewhere right here too. So that was all buried. When I lived on the ranch, I called it a ranch. When I lived on it, I would constantly get metal parts popping up out here. So I suspect that there's some equipment buried out here somewhere because I was constantly getting metal parts popping up from the ground. So, and I was told that's because there was stuff buried in there. Um, so basically, like I said, this image shows you, sadly enough to say, this image shows you land that's been really treated bad by drought. Um, right after the drought hadn't started yet when I got the land. Um, my plan was to split the land right down the middle here, which later, if you look, you can kind of see how gate line. I mean, you can see fence lines and things like that. By the way, there's a whole nother big section of land right here on this side that my family owned it, but they had sold it by the time, my aunt got this land. And so this was all that was left of our family land. Anyways, so the idea was I was going to split it down the middle. I was going to make this to be grass, and then I was going to plant winter wheat in this area. And of course, this would be my barn area. But eventually, I got horses too, so I ended up extending my barn area out to about here, so that the cattle had this during the winter, and the cattle also hung out here in the winter, and then my horses had this section um, for the during the winter, well, always. But initially, this shelter I built was built for the cattle, and then later I modified it for the horses, and also because to store alfalfa square bales in here. Later, when I had ultimately converted this into an arena, and so to train horses with, I had a round pen right in here. And I'll show you this stuff a little more detailed later. Well, here, let's do this. I can definitely. But the point of this was this whole thing was going to be grass. And I even considered, like I said, I considered trying to get the well up and running so I could irrigate a little bit, especially when the drought happened. But it became very expensive and never came to fruition. It had water, at 80 foot of water. So we were in good shape. The water was about 500 feet down in the aquifer. And so, yeah, we could have done it. It's just, I ran out of money, really. So we'll get more detail here when I was saying. So here's this part of the land. I only used it for temporarily to house animals that people needed help with, take care of. This area right here was where, like I said, I converted later into a arena for training horses. This is where I typically stored my round bales of hay. There were trees here, surprising. They're all gone now. But there were trees here, and we had some hawks that lived in the tree. They would do. I usually stored my implements here or here. This is where I stored my tractor and my John Deere 4020 tractor, and I stored my some other implements here. So I had implements and implements. Like I said, this was ultimately the corral area for the horses, and then extended during the winter. They had access to this. You can see that obviously, I apparently wasn't very good at making. Well, this fence was already there, so that's what screwed me up. I had no idea that this fence was not straight, and so it ended up kind of affecting my other fences because I was kind of going off that fence. Um, anyway, so I did put a shelter here for the cattle during the winter. The concept was is that when things were wet, they could stay here, or and they had this little area that I kept for like when things got really wet. Um, and then, like I said, you can't see it in this image, but this area was to be winter wheat that they could eat during the winter, and then during the summers they could graze up in here, the 60 acres. Well, it'd probably be about 30, 20, 30 acres. That was strictly grass that they could graze on. I forgot what fescue and some other grasses I think was in it. Anyways, so it kind of gives you an overview. But when I first got this place, there was nothing there but this house. That was it. I had to, when I got it, I also weighed about 400 pounds. So I was very overweight, which is, so when I started building the fences, that kind of, it took me, I started off really slow, just took my pickup truck and started pounding in T-posts and putting in the fence. And I just went slow, but little by little, I gained up, started losing weight, and I gained some strength, and ultimately I lost 100 pounds in like the first 6 months, and which gave me the ability to have the cattle that I had. Um, like I said, right after I started this, there was a drought, and that um, and so pretty much everything dried up. Like the grass was the only thing that grew. The wheat never grew, and so it all dried up, and so I had to get bales of hay to sustain, which is I'll tell you the story. Basically, I price of round bales of hay were about $40 a bale at the time, hay grazer, and the drought was happening, and so the price was going up. And so I had contacted a local grower and asked him if he was going to grow that year, and he said no, he wasn't going to grow because of the drought. And although he had sprinkler systems, so I was kind of like surprised. And I said, well, what kind of price would you charge me if I guaranteed 80 bales that I would buy? And he said, how about $80 a bale, which was double the price at the time. And so I agreed to that price. And so he actually planted the hay grazer and used a sprinkler system to grow it. And then he cut it, and then he let it sit there for a while. And he contacted me on the phone and said, "Hey, I think I think I underestimated the value of the bales, and I don't want to sell it to you for $80 a bale now." I was like, "What? We agreed on the price, I was taught by the Cowboy Code that when you make an agreement that you stick to your agreement. I always did. Anyways, so he was like, "No, no, I want to charge you more." So then he went up to $90. I said, "Okay, I don't like that you're doing this to me, but all right, I agreed to the $90." Well, then about a week later, he still hadn't bailed, and he's like, "I think I'm still undercutting myself. This is a drought. I think I'd rather sell it to you for $100 a bale." I said, "Look, okay, this is the last time, right? You're going to finally bale up the hay and sell it to me at this." He goes, "Yes, yes, yes, yes." So then, sadly, so then next thing I know, he contacts me again, says, "You know what? I know I said that that's going to be the price, but I think $120 a bale is better is the correct price now." And again, the hay is still just laying on the ground. Um, and at that point in time, 120 was way overpriced than anybody else was. Well, one, you couldn't get it anywhere else. So I finally I agreed to the 120. So this was getting ridiculous. I mean, I couldn't believe this guy he knew he had me. He knew I couldn't get it anywhere else. And so, yeah, I said, okay, sure. Then it decided to rain. Now, I was like, dude, when are you going to bale it? So I can get these bales. And in the end, the sad thing is, he told me he ended up selling it to a local dairy, which I'm guessing he even got more than $120 a bale, I guess. And I got none of that hay. So here I was now with no hay, and there's no hay anywhere around. And it's too late. You can't get somebody else to grow it now. And I need hay desperately bad. So I ended up calling around Texas, and I found a guy. I ended up paying almost $200 a bale. And that sucked, I'll be honest with you. It was messed up what that guy did to me. Anyway, so I took a picture of the hay. Some of this is just grass, maybe hay grazer. And then the rest of this is wheat, actually, from Texas. And in what the headline of this picture was when I took it on Facebook was, "This is what $10,000 looked like." So yeah, this was just, I forget how many bales it was total. Um, I think it's more than 80, but it could have been 80. Yeah, $10,000 it cost me for all this hay right here for that year. And I think there's another picture. Let me see if I gotta go to this one here. Yeah, it's just a closer picture of it. Yeah, so I did finally get hay, but I paid some serious price for it. I think, like I said, I think I paid $200 a bale, and I think that's pretty screwed up. That guy did that to me. Anyway, so oh well. So in 2008, I started the land. Let me see if I can get. And I uh, went to the auction. I built so I started. I taught myself to weld, and I built my shelters. And let me see if I can get a picture that kind of gives you. Well, I'll just go ahead and start with these pictures here. Um, I want to get to a different picture than this one. There you go. So I taught myself to weld, and so I dug. And by the way, I mean when I dug this is oil pipe oil well pipe. But when I dug these things, I had to use a pole hole digger and dug them out by hand, and then of course put them in and put concrete in, and then buried them. Um, so when I initially, so this is the shelter I initially was building. I had not put the roof on yet because what happened was I just kind of got excited. I had the fence up at that point in time, just fenced out the whole 60 acres except for where my property was, where the house was, and so like I said, I taught myself to weld, so I'd actually um, welded the frame in. I had to hire somebody for the C-purlin because I was just burning holes in the sealer purlin. That wasn't good enough yet, and I didn't have a wire welder yet. Um, and so then, of course, I bought the metal siding, and I had metal for the roof. I just kind of got excited and wanted cattle really bad. So you can see that I'm using some of the gray Tractor Supply panels, which those later, they were too thin. Were the worst. I should have never purchased those things. I should have bought reds for sure up front. And of course, later, everything I used was oil well pipe. I built myself. But so you can see everything's pretty much brand new here. There's a brand new water tank. I basically had it set up like this so that they could drink on either side of the crowd. But anyways, so I go out so I start going to the auctions, trying to figure out how auctions work, and to ultimately going to buy some cattle. And boy, I tell you what, I wasn't quick enough to understand what they were saying all the time in the auction. Maybe the blah, 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 that part just kind of got me messed up. Anyways, I never could I was terrible at an auction. I'm not the person to ever go to an auction. When I would go buy, most of the time I would just go, yeah, 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 until I won it. I had no idea what the price was and just paid whatever it was I paid. So I probably got really screwed over a lot during that first, every time I went to an auction. And I think they knew it too. Anyways, the point is that when I was finally ready to pull the trigger, like I said, I didn't even have the roof on yet, but I just was excited. And so I went down to the auction and I bought. I thought there was four. I think there is four. Yeah, I bought my first four cows, pea cows. They were all pregnant. You can tell they're fairly wide in the mouth, so they're not young. But I think I paid $750 a head, which is probably not a bad price actually. Yeah. Um, you know, and actually these cows were good cows too. And they were when I first got them, they were a little wild. But anyways, so I bought the cattle, and of course you can see in this picture. I'll go back real quick here and say, show. Oops. Let me close that out so they can just get the. Oh, there you go. Yeah. You can see in this picture, I had bought me a little stock trailer that was called a four-horse trailer, but so it basically held a few animals. I had actually bought me a 4020 tractor, and I don't think that's my pickup truck. I think this is still the guy who lived there before had to come back and get it yet. This was the house I lived in right here. Like I said, my family built this thing like in the 50s or something. Anyways, so basically, I took my stock trailer to go get them, and of course, this picture you can see I welded. This was for a light that never happened. Um, anyways, the when I first backed my trailer up, let me go back to yeah. When I first, let me go back to that picture. I know it's too bad I did that, but let me go back to this picture. Um, what's funny is, so I there's a gate right here, so I backed my trailer up right here, somewhere right here, because at the time there was grass out here because the drought hadn't happened, and so I so I'm thinking, the cow's gonna exit my trailer. They're gonna see all that wonderful grass, and they're just gonna be happy as heck, right? And so that's what I thought was happening, gonna happen. But that's a newbie mistake, something I didn't know better. As soon as those cows got out of my trailer, they made a beeline for this corner right here, which is my fence, right? And it was a hot fence, by the way. And this was a 3 or 4 wire fence too, with a hot fence wire. Anyways, it they went right through that fence. It went. This is a street right here. It went across the street to my neighbor's land, and they were out there in the field. Um, Eventually, over here, there was some wheat that was growing, nice and green wheat, and so eventually they went down this way, crossed the road again, and was out in this field. And there is a gate over here that had never been open in a long, 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 long time. It was like a wire gate. So I ended up having to work. So first I ended up working on getting that wire gate open so that I could get the cattle in here. And then it took me forever to get those cattle because there were wild cows. They were super wild cows. And I, and they didn't want to leave that wheat, man. That wheat was some good feed. And even though there was grass over here, they didn't want to leave it. And so fortunately, there was somebody in a pickup truck that saw that I was out there struggling to get the cattle to go through that gate. And they came up with their pickup truck. And so with me and my pickup truck, which I had a 96 Chevy Silverado, four-wheel drive. Love that truck. Anyways, he helped me, and we got the cows through the gate finally, closed the gate off, and finally, at the end of the day, and it was late in the day, I had started like at 6 in the morning. The cows were on the land, and fortunately, they stayed on the land at that point. Now, I didn't, again, they were just out on the land at the time. So now the next dilemma was how in the world was I going to get them? So I ended up putting the panels up so they could have. So let's close this off again, or let's minimize that. We can come back to that. Obviously you can see now. You can see panels here. There's a panel here. I did buy a couple red ones, but the most of the stuff I did was that gray, which was cheaper. But man, although right here this was oil well pipe. This is a 3-inch pipe, and this is like a 1-inch pipe or 2-inch. I forget. I think 2-inch. Anyways, I say this because I'm watching Sunny Farms videos, and when I seen him build with oil well pipe as well, and that's what's funny. Anyways, um, so let me see other pictures. Will show what I'm trying to say here about that. Anyways, yeah. So this was the area. I had a gate here, and then this was going to be where my like a tool shed or a feed shed where I could put feed and stuff stored. And so I had a gate here already. So getting the cows in here, now that was quite an interesting scenario. Again, these were wild cows. I know they don't look wild here. Well, I caked them up by now, so they've kind of gotten a little more gentle. Anyways, getting them to finally get in this corral was not so easy. Um, Actually, the irony is that I had a neighbor who had horses. Um, yeah, this cow actually ended up getting pink eye. I had to treat it. So these are my first four cows. You can see that one, and then there's these other three. Those are the first four ones. Anyway, so fine, they were out on the land. Let me go back to that picture again, just so you can see it. They were um, they were out in here, and I wanted them down here into my corral so that I could. Well, it's like basically I was going to start caking them and trying to get them used to me. Them being way out there was no way in the world they were going to get used to me. I couldn't get them to come down this way. It took. I tried. Never could get them down there. So then one of my neighbor, he had horses. So I thought, hey, cowboys, horses, they could come out and get this thing together. Anyway, so they went out there with their horses, and there was a lot. I mean, there was a good 4 or 5 of them, but there were only 4 cows. They could not get the cattle in. They ended up giving up, which I was shocked. I was like, "You're kidding me!" I didn't know what to do. Um, you know, so in the end, I drove out to them. Uh, what drove out? Let me try to think about that. What did I have back? Oh, my pickup truck. Yeah, all I had was my pickup truck. I didn't have like a side by side, and I didn't have a quad either. I mean, I had quads earlier in my life, but not here. Anyways, so I would drive out and give them cake, and little by little they would start, you know, sweetening up to me. I can't think of the word right now. I feel you, Sunny. Cole. Anyways, the, uh, the warmed up to me. That was the word I'm looking for. They were warming up to me, and little by little, I was able to get them to come to the cake, and I was able to actually get them into um, the corral system. And of course, now that's where this picture comes from, is that they were in the corral, and so I had to keep them in this corral, and it's a small one. I had to keep them into it for a while there, just to so they get used to me. And besides, trying to remember if there was, yeah, there was a little bit of grass out there at the time, not a ton. Um, anyway, so there you go. So there's my first 4 cows. I ended up getting them in there. Now later, I ended up, let me try to go back to my. I'm obviously I'm screaming one screen. Was there anything? Anyway, so I'm trying to see if there's anything I forgot. Obviously, there's a mental block there. Yeah, so there's my 4 cows and the beginning of my ranch in 2008. 2000, yeah, 8. My ranch life. And it's pretty cool. This picture is actually pretty good because it does show my trailer and it shows me a 4020 tractor and the beginnings. You can tell I later painted some stuff, so it changed colors. Anyways, so you can tell it's pretty old. Okay, so there's 2008 and my beginning cattle. Then, um, my the, then my neighbor, he also had cows. Now, this is good. This is a set of pictures. He also had cows, and his cows were let's see if I can get it here. So I ended up buying his cows. See if I can get pictures of his cows. That's what I'm looking for right now. There you go. I ended up buying his cows. Now they were older as well. He had just sold them at the auction. Like he sold a bunch at the auction. Here's his property right over here. A lot more nicer property than I had. He had sold his cattle, but so these were like 6 or 7 cows that he didn't take to the auction because I think he took like 50 head to the auction, and these were the ones that left behind. So obviously not the best that he had. He gave me a good price for them. I want to say I paid another eight. I think I paid $800 a head for these, and they were pregnant, so I was good. I ended up, as you can see now, I actually fenced off. At this point in time, I actually fenced off the barn. So if we go back to this image again, I had now built the fence here. And so if you see in that picture, I actually had put these, sorry about that. I put 50-gallon plastic barrels, cut them in half, bolted some metal pieces to them to keep them upright, and that's how I fed cake to them. And I learned real quick that feeding cake to the cattle helped keep them, allowed you to control them. So hot wire fence was right here, so I could keep them over here. I ended up building another shelter over here, but so here's the water tank for that. Oh, I'm trying to remember why I had this fence here. Probably because I had bought a bull and had the bull over in the corral at the time. That's probably why. You can tell this is a hot fence, so I could like not get shocked doing some things. Anyways, this gate went out to that field. Anyway, so yeah, you can see. I think it's just. Anyways, let's go back to the pictures. So those cows calved first. Whoops, definitely not want that. And you can see February 10th, 2009. And they were bred to the Angus cows were bred to a Charolais bull, and these were the first calves that were born. There were 2 actually born in the first together at the same night. And so I kind of took some pictures of my first calves being born on my property. Yeah, you can tell there isn't a lot of feed here. It's starting to dry up. You know, New Mexico does get hot and stuff dries out, but there was food. Anyways, and I was new to this stuff, very new. And it is February. Anyway, so here we go. So now we got more cows calving. And again, they were born Charolais. Just a variety of pictures of it. Here's the one that showed. This one here was an interesting. I don't know what breed it was, but it had a funny eyes, and when its calves calved, they would be floppy-eared. So I'm thinking there was some Brahma in this one. I know these were called Brangus cows, and so there is some Brahma in them, but this one I think had a lot more Brahma in it. Anyways, so and then of course these were Herefords. They were actually they probably were pure blood Herefords. Great black baldies coming off of them. I don't know why I don't have a picture of my bull, which is a shame. Well, the first bull I got was actually a Hereford bull, so that I could breed to these cows and get black baldies. And then I was wanting heifers off of these 2, which I got. 3 heifers out of the 4, so I was pretty happy with that. So and then the next year I bought an Angus bull so that I could breed to my heifers and he was only like a yearling bull, so I could breed to my heifers and then breed all of them, and I could get black baldies off of these, and then I would just get black Angus cows off of these. And so I don't know why I don't have pictures of that bull. Well, I also don't have a lot of pictures back that I've lost. At this point in time, you can see I extended my shelter. Here I've got my yearlings in um, and I got a few extra pictures. My yearlings are in here. Here I've got a rub for them. Like I said, here you can see it here. Oh, here's my tool shed I was telling you about. I put a gate on it later. Things are extending out. I'm starting to add a little more. Like ultimately, I added a straightway and I added a head gate in there for them to start working. But so my farm is starting to, you know, develop. I'm developing my ranch little by little over time. And so you can see these are my yearlings. They were weaned and being fed, and they're nice and healthy. Back to picture of my 4020 and my trailer, stock trailer. This is just a picture of me. That's what I look like. And yeah, it's a shame about the flies. Flies is a pain in the butt for everybody who knows better. But anyway, so this was me and my and they were obviously very gentle. They loved me. I loved them licking on me and things like that when I was young, when they were young, and of course, very gentle animals, well taken care of animals. Um, the ones I butchered were well taken care of. Good eating though, I'll tell you. Anyways, um, so of course, these were the ones they were bred before I got them. So, you know, I have no idea what they're. I mean, obviously, Charlet was the white ones, and I'm thinking these were what came off of the Hereford cows. You know, although this one came off the Hereford cow too. Yeah, here's my straightway. You can see I put in oil well pipe, and I had at the time I had put um, particle board to keep the it's keeping them from they're getting their feet kicked in. There's my pickup truck right there. I think eventually I'll show you a better picture of it, but it was the '96 Chevy Silverado. You can tell I'm starting. I painted the house, so you can see the paint already started. But well, my corral system is definitely growing in this pictures. Definitely growing in this pictures now. I mean, basically, I started using red panels because, well, hey, the gray ones would smash way easy, and cows could just go through them pretty easy. So I was filtering out and buying a lot of more red panels. Uh, hey, a round bell feeder here, and of course my straightway was over here again, and you can see, like I said, my corral system, my shelter now was growing and growing, and it grew another section later. This was for horses, and then this became for hay, and then there was a whole nother shaded area over here that was for later. Um, which there you go. There's my pickup truck, 4x4, and my house that I lived in. Small little house, had 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, living room, kitchen. Older house, but nice little farmhouse. I told you there was the little door that went down to the basement-ish area, and then there was like another little shed off to this. Anyways, so when I was a kid, and my grandparents had a trailer out at the lake, and they he had farmed a little bit of stuff there. They had lined their driveway with poles, telephone poles, and so I had done the same thing. It was just stemmed from my grandparents. I was trying to use this as a water at one time, but I didn't like how it worked out, and I didn't like it as a feeder either, so I ended up just using it to line my driveway. And of course, I had rock on my driveway here. Anyways, okay, so let's keep going. Feeding out my. Oops, what happened? Not sure what just happened. Why it happened? Oh, did I? More, just obviously the pictures I didn't. They're not in order, so they're just showing you different phases of their lives. Um, you know, different ones, and I bought my dog. He was a Catahoula, and I bought him as a puppy, and so he's still a little puppy here. I had bought another one here. She was a black lab. Oh, I love this dog. And they were just two peas in a pod. They were awesome together. However, a neighbor asked me to go. Yeah, I don't know if I want to tell the story, but sadly enough to say, my neighbor asked me to help him flush out a coyote, and because I had a scope on my rifle, he wanted me to shoot it, and so um, we were over by his barn, and I had made sure my dogs were with me. They were with me, and we ran around the corner where I thought the coyote was, and all of a sudden out come this animal, and there was a lot of tall grass, so the opportunity to really see was very short, and so you just kind of saw the animal, shot it, boom. No opportunity to realize. Well, sadly enough to say, Tanika, that was her name, she had ran around the other side of the barn right after I had checked to make sure she was with me, and I didn't notice that she did that. And so what I thought was the coyote that ran out, and you would think she's black. Coyotes aren't black, but like I said, it didn't have any opportunity to even notice. It was just it bolted, a shot, boom. And anyways, it turned out I shot my dog. I cried for like 2 weeks after shooting that dog. I can't believe I shot my dog. Anyways, yeah, I mean, many times before I'd shot coyotes and stray dogs and things like that, keeping them off my calves. But yeah, I can't believe I shot my dog. Anyways, so yeah, so she didn't last on the farm very long, which is a shame. She was such a good dog. He, on the other hand, he was there the whole time, never left. Uh, uh, Wonderful dog. When I ended up losing the ranch, I gave him to another farmer so he could stay on a farm because I just couldn't see putting him in a horse trailer. Anyways, so yeah, another picture of my. Um, there's the light pole I was gonna put a light on top. It just never happened. Here was a brush hog. Now, a nice one, pretty good, 7 foot, I think it was. Like I said, implements were along this fence here. Things are growing on the farm. I think that's the last picture of that year. And then let me go back to here, 2009. Now we're at 2010. And again, sadly enough, these pictures are like, um, oh, I'm feeding out again. They definitely had horns, some of them. These are the ones I fed out. Um, and oh, this is second year calving. Like I said, I had a Hereford bull that year, and so my Herefords did produce me 3 heifers, which was nice. This is again feeding out pictures. I don't think that was snow, though we did occasionally get some snow. Yep, that was all that I had on that picture. I lost a lot of my pictures when I lost the farm, and um, ended up losing a ton of pictures. I don't know what happened to them. Anyways, so let's see here. Yeah, because you can tell land is pretty much just gone and dead. It's the drought really just destroyed everything, made things so difficult. This is obviously from the first bull. This was from the Angus bull, and this actually is one of my heifers, I think, if I remember. Yes, this is one of my heifers. This was her first calf. And, this whole set of pictures is from the heifers and their first calves from that Angus bull that I bought. Really, oops, that's not what I wanted. Oh. So yeah, and the cool part, I mean, black baldies, very good. Oh yeah, you can tell we're in the drought because there's all that hay that I bought right here. And then of course my farmhouse over here, and there's just nothing on the land. It's all dried up. And here I'd already built the other shelter, and they were feeding off of that. I was putting round bales and kind of feeding them because it was wheat. I was kind of putting them on it, let them eat, and then taking them off of it because it was just really high level feed. And I was sometimes tossing in some hay grazer periodically. So like I said, the cool part is I like this picture. This is my favorite picture because it just shows you how caring these animals are, loving. You know, they all were just, you know, helping mothers. But these were my 3 heifers that I had. Here's a picture of my second shelter that I had built. and of course this calf sitting here. They were just really loving animals. Like I said, this picture just shows how horrible the land was. That it's just drought, you know. Got it. Sadly enough to say, and I'm about to basically in 2012, as we're going through these pictures, and here I'm feeding some. I think this may be feeding some alfalfa. Not sure why I did. Um, in the end, so in 2012, the drought had been going on a while. Nothing was growing. I was pouring every dime I had into it. I already went through my savings. I was working a second job, and every dime I made went into this place. My aunt, she just saw it as, look, the the land had fences on it, it had shelters on it, it had two wells, and so she saw it as an opportunity to sell it. And so in 2012, she actually sold the land. This is not 2012. This is 2012. So she ended up selling the land, and I had to get rid of. Here was my propane tanks back here, because I had a propane 4020. Anyways, she ends up selling the land, and I lost everything. I mean, my grain drill, my grass drill, I only got $25, and I had just put chains on the drive chains on the drill, and the drive chains were $50 each. I just put new tires on it, and so when I went to sell them at auction, $25 each is all I got back. It was like these cows, they were bred back, and they were culled because nobody wanted them because they were Herefords, and they weren't papered Herefords, so they were registered Herefords, and so it was drought. Nobody wanted them, and so they were actually pregnant, but they were culled. Became hamburger meat, I guess, which is I can't believe they did that. Really irritating the events that took place when this all happened. I was only given 2-week notice to get off the land. She had sold the land, so I had to go out there, start pulling all the fences with my tractor, taking down all my gates. I started to took down the one shelter, but then the guy who bought the property came over and got upset because he was like, "Wait a minute, don't they come with the land?" I was like, "She's not giving me any money, and I'm the one who built those things and paid, and they're my shelters." And so he got lawyers, and in the end, he got to keep it. So that's why the main shelter never got torn down. Anyways, so I had to sell the cattle off. I had to sell everything, and it just sold so cheap. Think of the amount of money I put into life. I put into this thing for 4 years, and then it's all gone in 2 weeks. It's like shocking. So these are the pictures of my farm. Um, like I said, it's a shame I didn't bring any. Obviously, I'm not showing you any of the pictures of the horses, though I think maybe for see if I have any more pictures. No, that's it. I was gonna say probably for Cole. I don't have the pictures here to show him. I was gonna say I should pull up my horses, but because I did ultimately do horses. Um, Now I do want to show you one thing here. I'm trying to find out where it is, farm and ranch. When I was doing my ranching, getting rid of some of these pictures. Let me move this over to here now. Okay, why is it not letting me move it? Initially, I was using um, my spreadsheet to do this, right? So I did name my cattle. So these are all the cows I had on my property up until I wrote my software, I guess. So it says 2010, so obviously this wasn't all of them. Um, Ultimately, I ended up writing software to manage all this stuff, but this was my spreadsheets I did, and so so this was the first four. This is the next seven or whatever. These are the calves that were heifers that ultimately I bought a few extra ones. These are the heifers. Anyways, yeah, the one that the black baldy that had the um, speckled face, I called that one Mickey from Mickey Mouse. You'll notice I named a lot of my cattle later as like Queen Anne, Queen Victoria. Yeah. Um, like I mean, the bulls. Like if I go to bulls, I named them after this was the Hereford Arthur. This was the Angus bull that I bought. I called him. He was a handsome bull, so I called him handsome. Um, the he was 14 months old. Apparently, when I bought him in April 2010. He weighed 1,100 pounds. I paid. I want to say. I guess it looks like I paid $1,200 for him. Which the guy gave me a good deal, really good deal. So it's 424, and he left. I sold him at 11. I forgot why I sold him. Well, I didn't want to breed him to his own calves, his own heifers. Oh no, probably no, I forget. And oh well, he weighed 1,700 pounds when I left, so he gained 665, 650 pounds, whatever. Um, I sold him for 1,283. Yeah, so he gained 665. I had him a total of 19.4 months, and I made $88 off of him. You know. Anyway, so then the next bull, the guy screwed me over. It was a terrible bull. Um, you know, he was 1,500 pounds when I got him. I think he was older than he told me. He lied. Would I pay $2,000 for this thing? It was during the drought, and well, yeah, and then yeah, this turned out to be a horrible bull. I hated that bull. He didn't even get all my cows pregnant. Anyway, so then my calves, these were the first ones. This is when in the order they were born. You know, I forget how old they were when I sold them. I guess what they were, color, who the cow was or what type of cow it was, and here was the mom, the name of the cow, and here was the bulls. We didn't know. Um, and then when I gave them their shots and what age they were when they weaned, what age they were when I weaned them in months. Uh, yeah, maybe weeks. I don't know. Forget now. Uh, months. Um, when I started finishing out, I sold these. Started finishing these out. Ultimately, I only finished my first set out to about 1,000 pounds. This spreadsheet obviously keeps going on, um, and so here's my records keeping of what I did until I wrote my software, and then of course this was my next year's set of calves that I got, and they were all bred to a Hereford bull. I had this one I must have bought. And then, of course, these ones the ones that were bred to the Angus bull. And, you know, you can see the drought. So here's right before the drought. This is the drought. Things went down. And, of course, I lost my ranch in 2012. So this is when I sold them all. And, I mean, the price, it was horrible. I got so terrible pricing. Yeah. $300, 500, 300. That's a terrible price. I cannot believe that's what they sold for. They were pregnant. Anyways, yeah. So then I went out and said, okay, well, so each month I went out and I kept track of what I fed my cattle, alfalfa, cake. This was the electric bill for the feeding that I was charging out, the cost of watering them and things like that, and mineral and salt. And so I kept track of my feed that I fed them for 2010, 2011, 2012. Then when I butchered the first year, Um, I I wrote out all the different meats that I had and who they what they came from. Like this is I named the first cow born Bread, and he was my bread and butter. Then Lancelot, and then like I said, my aunt. This is what I gave her. This is what I got. And then there was a guy. My brother got this. So and then I was just keeping track of the meat that I from butchering that I you know. Then I had a then I started had buyers. Occasionally, people would buy my cattle, and so I was trying to keep track of the buyers that bought my cattle. Again, it only really didn't go very long because and my aunt ended up selling. I forget what feeding is. Oh, this was just kind of where I was guessing how I was going to feed, especially during the drought. And then, of course, when I got my food, I, you know, I put, I literally started keeping track of, you know, what I ate on each day. Tenderloin, porterhouse, New York strip, T-bones, sirloins, ribeyes. So these are literally what's what type of black baldy, Charlet, um, what what size. I don't know what that meant. Oh, time. This was how long I cooked them. Minutes per side, because I started out because I ate pretty much ultimately went into what was rare, you know, and then my rating of the taste of the food at the time, 5 being excellent, 4 delicious, 3 good, enjoyable, okay, didn't like it. Um, and so I was keeping track of, at the time, how the food I was eating and what my rating of it. I ended up writing software to take care of all this stuff. Sadly, though, the software I wrote ended up. Oh, I forgot. Here's another picture. Let's see it. Cancel. I had kind of like a layout of my corrals when I did it initially. Did it? I think that's all of the. Yeah, it's all. Anyway, so I my software I wrote, I ended up writing it um, for uh, uh, using a web service in the background, which was nice because that means you could use a web browser of anywhere that you could use a web browser to pull the data up and so you could actually use a tablet out of or even later even a cell phone out at the barn or out at the corral system while you were working your cattle and log what you did. And my eyesight right now is in bad shape, so I can't really read too much right now because I'm having some eye problems. But this was different aspects that I provided for my software I wrote, and this was just a screen that said, you know, apparently I was looking at one of the ranches, and then you could split out the ranch into different pastures and things like that, and then you could select. In this case, I selected apparently a whole ranch, and I wish I could see with my eyes to see what that says. Anyways, then if you had a contact for that area of land, then you had this, and this was what feed was existing on that land or in that area, and then this was the animals that would be in that area, and then of course if you selected, in this case this was a horse, um, I could see the history of that animal of what I did, and of course so this was kind of an overview of land and animals. This one here on animals, like gave you, it was more focused on the animal, the different breeds of animals and things like that, and the different animals. And then of course I can't show it to you. Oh yeah, I was trying to say is I wrote this stuff, but sadly the front end was being used Flash to show the thing, and well, Flash went away, and so basically I have to use Windows 7 to run that software because they did away with the tool that I used to write this software. So in order for me to be able to use this software again today, I'd have to rewrite the user interface in a different language than what I was using. Um, so in essence, that's a lot of the part of writing the software is the front end the user interface. And so I'd have to rewrite all that user interface again to run it on Windows 11 in this case. And so, I do have a laptop that has Windows 7 on it that I can run it, but obviously I wouldn't be able to display it here. And I have other images of that software. I just don't have it in these pictures. It's on a server that I have. Anyway, so this kind of gives you an example of my software and what I had wrote to keep track of. And it's a shame I don't have other pictures because, it broke it down. Like here, the consumption section is where I could go out and say, okay, I could select a piece of land and literally say, okay, um, all the animals on that land. So you'd select the animals that were going to consume some feed, and then you would select what feed the animals was feeding. You could either have just one bale, or you could have a bag of feed or whatever, or you could have a mixture of feeds. And then you would literally break out the cost of that feed break it out per animal, but you didn't have to do it yourself. You just selected what animals were going to eat this feed, what feed they ate, and then the program distributed the cost out to that animal. And then, of course, you could go, in this case, by the way, let me see here, see what showed here. I purchased this horse. This is not what time I purchased this horse. So, I fed it. This is all fake data here. Dewormed him. I did a Coggins for the horse. So it kept track of what you did to your horses when you did it, shots and things like that, and cost and things like that. And so, so that's what that consumption tab does. If you wanted to move animals from like one pen to another pen or whatever, you could use that to move them. So you didn't have to move, you could just move a whole set of animals. Defaults was just so you could, I forget what it is. I have to go back and look. Equipment, this is where I was able to maintain, like my pickup truck, my tractor, and any maintenance I had in it, and any kind of things I had in my tractor and things like that. So it was allowed that you could maintain your maintenance history and things like that on that. Farmland, this was so it had the land, but it also kept track of what you've planted, when you planted it, if when you cut it, if it was in a cut state right now or not, if it was baled, and how many bales were on the land if you had baled it. And then when you would move the bales, you could move the bales, the inventory, which was what this move inventory was about. Anyways, so it kept track of the land, and it was all based on what you would do with land scenario. And then move locations. Oh, what? Move locations? I don't remember what that did. Like I said, moving inventory, that could be like moving bales or moving. You'd use move animals to move animals. Forgot. And then this is an old version because I even added a calving section where you could deal with calves or, birthing. And then I actually added a comparator so you could actually compare animals and see how they did, or compare animals by year and see, if you made a change, if it was a good change or not. So I added a whole lot more to my program since this picture was taken. And this picture was taken in that's not true. It must have been when I moved the file when that date says. It says 2016. Anyways, point of sale was when I wanted to sell something, and then sales was more statistical information. And I'm trying to blink my eyes so I can see what that last one says. Let me get a little closer and see if I can see. Oh, tables. That's just where you set up your tables, drop down tables and things like that. And then settings. Anyways, okay. So, like I said, this just gives you an idea that I had been writing this software to take care of my animals, and it's, I really liked it. I used it. I ditched my spreadsheets and went to that. Anyway, so this is probably a pretty long video, but I just wanted to kind of tell you. I don't know if I ended up saying my aunt sold the land. Yeah, about 2 week notice I had to get off, and that was the end of my ranch. So there you go. So there was my ranch life to some degree. Ultimately, I did do horses, but and like I said, if you go back real quick here, you can see, like I said, you can now see where things were. Right here ended up being a fence. And so the horses ended up getting this area. The cattle had this area. The horses had this and this. Um, this was still all for growing. Ultimately, in the end, and of course, you could see like before, you can see calf paths before the. No, I think this was where the horses were. This is the horse fence here. Yeah, that's the horse fence. This was where the second corral was, and this was the winter area for the cattle and the winter area for the horses. And then, like I said, this was all winter wheat, and this was all grass. Anyways, okay. So let me end this thing because that's probably pretty long right now. I don't even know where OBS. What happened to OBS here? Let me go over here and stop recording. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it was a long video, but I wanted to show you what it was like from my ranch life. It only lasted 4 years. I loved it. I would love to go back and do it again one day. I'm 60 years old at this point. I guess I'm retired because my career seems to be over thanks to the pandemic. So anybody out there has got a farm that would like a 60-year-old person who needs to probably lose weight again, but would love to live the life and contribute. I sure would love to have that happen. I need obviously room and board. I have a little bit of savings, but in the next year and a half, it'll be gone because I'm living off of that now. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it's long. Talk to you later.